Okay, I think I'm going to start off with two quick comments, but I think it's good that maybe I'm kicking off the panel because I'm not going to go too deep into the how. I think maybe my colleagues will be doing that. I'm actually focused a little bit more around the broad sort of approach, because when I was asked to talk about methodology, I was thinking, okay, we don't use a single method. It's a lot about mixing and matching methods. So that's first, not so much about a single method, but about an approach or maybe even a philosophy. And then secondly, I think that this day was really designed very well in that, so now you've spent the morning sort of being inspired by a lot of different case studies. I guess for me now, I want to kind of pivot the conversation toward kind of more of project management or process management, what you all in this room actually do on a day-to-day, right? So that's sort of where I'm going to go with this, is a little bit about process guidance and how we're all kind of pushing a process. So let me start though with, let's see if I can. So I'm just going to start. So I had the privilege of spending the last 2 weeks on vacation. And I'm actually coming here from Hong Kong. And very fortuitously, I ended up in Hong Kong during Art Basel. And also got a chance to see the Zaha Hadid exhibit. Does anybody know who Zaha Hadid is? She's an architect. She does some really, really cool things. And the name of the exhibit was "There is no end to experimentation." So I thought the entire exhibit was quite inspiring and actually perfect for this conversation. But this particular quote, I want to just read really quickly. So she says, "I know from my experience that without research and experimentation, not much can be discovered. With experimentation, you think you're going to find out one thing, but you actually discover something else. That's what I think is really exciting. You discover much more than you bargained for. I think there should be no end to experimentation." So I really wanted to start with this because the exhibit inspired me. I figured this quote, and judging from what we discussed this morning, I think it fits in quite nicely as we're talking about innovation. And I know there's a lot of the use of the word experimentation in this quote, but I think the important part is the discovery. So we have kind of the next 3 days together, and I guess I wanted to start here because I think this is how we approach our work at the Engine Room. It's all sort of a discovery process, and this is how I think you'll want to work with data, and also how we're going to want to think over the next few days. So I wanted to set up the conversation with this. Because I also I read through all the proposals, the really fantastic proposals, and I think all of you have thought through so much. What I was really inspired by was a lot of really well-defined problems. But I do think for the next 3 days, we're really going through a design process. So it's really about kind of letting go and discovering anew. So a little bit about the Engine Room. We're an interdisciplinary group supporting change agents across the globe. So when I say interdisciplinary, that means we're a mix of people like myself, political economists, to technologists, to various different types of sort of specializations. And we support change agents. So historically, that's been change agents within CSOs. But we also work with government change agents as well. And we know we're kind of bridging that divide more and more. We're also a distributed group, so when we say we work across the globe, we are also based across the globe. So I have colleagues all over. I happen to be based in New York City, but travel all over. So at the Engine Room, we do focus on data and technology. The important part here is we know the benefits to using them, and hence that's why we're focusing on data and technology, but we also understand the critical limitations to doing so in what might be an irresponsible way or a decontextualized way. So some of the things I'm gonna pull out later are a couple of resources from the Engine Room, and you'll see that we really focus on trying to mitigate some of the risks in using data and tech. So at the Engine Room, we work on two main areas, human rights and transparency and accountability, or open government. And we continue to expand our areas of specialization. So we've done a lot of work in environmental justice, and we continue to expand to other domains. At the end of the day, we are seeking social change, and we use and support the use of data to achieve it. One of the things that I will say very quickly is our approach is using both thick and big data. So like our colleagues at the Pulse Lab, I won't go too much into that, but definitely we're doing both. I will say that our research that kind of underpins all the work that we do, we mostly work with thick data. That said, a lot of the support work we do is around sort of building the processes around tools that are using and analyzing big data. Okay. So, data in a project lifecycle. The reason why I think I think that just going back to my first point, right? Everybody in the room is, for better or worse, we're living in sort of a projectized world, right? So we're working on a project. For the next 3 days, we're going to be shaping projects that will last for, I think, the next 6 months or so. So a lot of us are going to be thinking along sort of, if you go back to sort of process, you're thinking about how am I using data at different points in my project life cycle. And that's really the approach we take. It's about that process. It's about asking yourself certain questions at different points in that process. So across that project life cycle. This image, and you can read more about it, is actually on, is from the Engine Room along with a bunch of our partners' Responsible Data Forum, which is the first resource that I wanted to introduce. So we at the Engine Room have a Responsible Data program. It is, let me just bring it up. Let's see if I can everybody see that? Oh no. Uh-oh. That's no good. Do you think I can project this? In any case, I can talk in the meantime. This way? Okay, now you can see it. So the Responsible Data program is pretty, I mean, it's pretty straightforward, but I just wanted to introduce it as a resource for you all. It is a bunch of resources, actually. So all of this is open, public. There's a handbook. So as you're asking yourself questions about using data, one of the gaps that we've always seen is kind of being really thoughtful about being responsible with your data. So whether it be everything from collection to analysis. And so this is a pretty brand new set of resources that you can use that don't prescribe things, but actually walk you through a process of asking yourself the right questions around, am I collecting this data responsibly? Who is it affecting, et cetera. So the second and last resource I'm going to talk about is something that we launched last week. Can I pull this? Actually, I can go straight to it. If you just go to that. Yeah. It's on the internet. Yeah, it's one of those tabs. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so something that we launched last week. So again, I'm just pulling out, we've seen a lot of pain points in working with data and technology, and one of them is, this is quite narrow in scope, but it's technology selection. So what tool are you selecting? But again, as a lot of people were talking about before, it's not really about the tool itself. So what Alidade does is, it's an interactive guide to kind of push you through a process of asking yourself the questions that you need to ask, and then come to potentially a selection around a tech tool. So it's a very, very simple process, and there's kind of like step 1, step 2, step 3, that's it. And again, it doesn't prescribe a tool to you, but walks you through sort of questions you're gonna ask yourself. So that's pretty much all I wanted to introduce today. I have one more slide, but I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get there. And I hope that sets up the rest of the speakers, because I think the idea, yeah. Thanks, Irina. Is really that the next 3 days, and really our approach to using data is discovery, right? It is not getting too set in your own ways, not business as usual, not kind of going to the flashy technology or the flashy use of data, but being problem driven and asking yourself the right questions at the right time. So why this data? Why any data? For what? What does this affect? So not jumping to those solutions, but really going through a discovery process. And that's it. Thanks so much.